Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Launch and Learn. Many thanks for joining us here. I'm happy to be here again and talk more about felines, particularly felines with a speech breath. Let's start sharing my screen to see the presentation. Today, we will see the Pecos River style felines and analyze their physical attributes. Widely the motif named speech breath, to do a comparative analysis between Pecos River style felines and Teotihuacan felines with these sensory signs. In my last Launch and Learn, I presented the method I used to describe an average of 70 physical attributes with specific categories to document and analyze 58 feline figures from 11 sites. The sites are in the Lower Pecos Canyonlands, and we learn how many details we can describe, such as the body, the head, the tail, the disposition, the orientation, colors, aspects, and etc. I mentioned one specific feature depicted in many felines, the sensory signs. Today, I will talk about felines with sensory signs, which are graphic devices to communicate senses. There is a convention to represent them. Lines in different parts of the body, such as the tail, back, nape, neck, armpits, nose, and mouth, as well as lines and dots coming out the mouths of the felines. I've documented 19 felines, and 10 of those has a speech breath. The comparative analysis between Lower Pecos and Teotihuacan felines with a speech breath will help us to discuss their interpretation. I'll explain the idea of sensory signs used as a visual resources to transform the intangible qualities of breathing, hearing, or smell into something enduring and palpable. Finally, I will show the current radiocarbon dates that Shumla got for Halo Shelter, a site with an iconic red feline, to compare those dates with Teotihuacan feline. The Lower Pecos Canyonlands are situated within the Grand Chichimeca at the edge of the Edwards Plateau and the Chihuahuan Desert. The northern half of the Lower Pecos lies in southwest Texas and the southern half in Coahuila, Mexico. Near the region's center, the Pecos and Devils Rivers converge with the Rio Grande. In this map, we can see the location of the 11 sites with felines. The hunter-gatherer artists in the region produced complex polychromatic murals dating to the Middle Archaic. Current data shows that Pecos River-style pictographs were painted from 5500 to 1300 Cal BP. Radiocarbon ages for the art suggest it remained in production for more than 3,000 years, persisting into the late Archaic. This mural is Halo Shelter, and we have here the iconic red feline. A recurring motif in Pecos River-style murals is the representation of painted lines and dots exiting or entering the mouth of anthropomorphic and zoomorphic figures. Boyd and Busby reported 90 representations of human and animal figures with this graphic device, including felines. Here we can see human and animals, the deer and the feline, with lines and dots in front of their mouths. They argue, Boyd and Busby argue, that Lower Pecos artists used this graphic device to signify speech, breath, and vital forces entering or exiting the body. Let's see some examples. Some of you will remember these examples from Lower Pecos. This feline from Halo Shelter with lines exiting the mouth, squiggly lines exiting the mouth, and one thick line coming down from nose. And two felines or human felines with dots exiting from mouths. An important attribute here is the black bracelets covering their wrists. Let's talk about the bracelets later, but keep in mind this detail, this attribute. In some cases, artists depicted speech breath throughout a combination of lines and dots. Like this case, Rattlesnake Canyon, this feline has a combination of two different elements. The artists used two different graphic devices to signify different things in the same feline. This feline has also a peculiar unpainted head on purpose, living unpainted in purpose. We have other two more felines with other recurring attribute includes piloerection. The piloerection is the hair standing on end, and we can see here for Fayetteville, the feline with a combination of piloerection lines grouped in different sections of the tail, but this feline has a speech breath or lines coming out in front of the mouth. And the other example is Cedar Springs. This feline has lines covering the whole body, the difference with the other one. And of course, that feline has a speech breath too. So we can see recurring attributes and a combination, in this case, speech breath and piloerection. Another interesting attribute is exaggerated lines extending from the nape and underside of the neck. It is possible to see that these lines are present in polychrome, two colors, and red felines. In this case, we can see the lines on the nape and the neck, here on the neck, and those part is just a spot, but the lines are coming here, and the lines on the neck on this feline, both of Panther Cape and this one in Leaping Panther. Finally, other attribute in a combination with speech breath or other attribute part of the sensory signs is are the lines coming down from their armpits. Some felines have the same number of lines, but for example, this Mystic Shelter this feline has lines on the armpits, lines on the back and legs, and speech breath in two different graphic representations. Those felines from Curly-tailed Panther have lines on the back, on the body, and lines in their armpits. And Panther Cape, this feline has lines in its armpits. But what's happening with Teotihuacan? Situated northeast of Mexico City, Teotihuacan was one of the most powerful cultural centers in Mesoamerica. It has enormous size monuments and mural paintings throughout the whole city. The polychrome murals paintings dating to 350 to 650 AD constitute a fundamental source for understanding indigenous religion. Teotihuacan felines are associated with creation, destruction, and transformation. They are recurrent figures in the murals and share characteristics with the felines of the Lower Pecos. I'm going to show examples from Teotihuacan. Our first example is Animales Mitológicos mural, which has various polychromatic felines with distinctive lines from their mouths. This is the original, and I put the illustrations to see the felines, but to see clearly the illustrations of the Animales Mitológicos murals. In those examples, we can see lines used as volutes, bands, and lines inside the bands associated with flame. The lines are interpreted as water streaming with flames inside, coming out of the mouths. This is interesting because it could be a visual couple metaphor representing fire and water, or burning water. It's a combination, it's a duality. In Nahuatl, burning water is at tlachinoli, or in Spanish, el agua que arde, el agua preciosa, or la sangre, the blood. These two opposing forces, water and fire, are used to initiate creation. We have more Teotihuacan felines from murals at Tetitla, Atetelco, Gran Conjunto, and Conjunto de los Jaguares. All these felines have different shapes coming from their mouths. Some interpretations have associated these shapes with representations of sensory experiences or vital substances. For example, double volute and single volute associated with words, tones, wind, roar, or breath. Trilove with heart, trilove with drops, like with bloody heart, and the bands with jet streams of water. The shapes inside the bands with flames. That's the burning water, or at tlachinoli. In this example, the Coyote feline from Atetelco, we can see many characteristics, or how this feline shares many characteristics with the felines of the Lower Pecos. Let's see, for example, the most notable similarities are the motifs coming out the mouth, the lines on the neck, the lines on the nape, the lines on the armpit, the lines on the tail, and the piloerection lines on the back. In Mesoamerica, humans and animals have animistic centers with concentrations of vital forces. And they also have entities spread throughout the entire body. Some of those animistic forces, such as Ihijot, have the power and autonomy to be exhalated throughout holes and joints. Some spots for the Tonali, Teyolia, or Ihijot, or other entities, some spots are the head, mouth, neck, nape, fontanelle, chest, the belly, navel, shoulders, of course, armpits, elbows, the wrists, hands, legs, knees, ankles, feet, and genitals. Animistic entities live in places like the wrist, neck, and armpits because these are hit points, pulse, beating body points, and temperature measurement body parts. Did you remember that black bracelets covering the wrist of the human felines? They are covering vulnerable body parts. In that part, something existing there, something is palpable there and is vulnerable. They need to be protected with the black bracelets. In Mesoamerica, there are graphic devices to denote action, tone, sense, and energies in motion linked to spiritual substances and ritual calendar events. The ethnography reflects that even today, different Mesoamerican indigenous groups use words to name souls, breaths, shadows, entities, and substances living inside a body. And of course, they use different graphic codes to represent them. The indigenous language associates some words with the act of reading, but they may also refer to voice, speech, odor, and taste. The vital forces or substances do not always refer to the same entity. One of the earliest examples is a speech scroll dating to 900 to 100 BC in Oxtotitlan, Guerrero, Mexico. In Mesoamerica, the volutes and lines continue appearing until the Classic period, which means this symbol had a continuity of 2,000 years. The scholars mention that the volute and virgule or speech scroll are symbols that refer to the sensory memory of ancient groups, which knew the codes to understand the shapes in the narrative and recognize how these graphic elements sounded when they watched them in the images. Today, we suggest that Pecos River-style felines are depicted with these graphic communicative codes because, like the Teotihuacan felines, in both cases, these are a symbol related to origin, creation, destruction, and transformation. When body heat, vapor, gases, sweat, pheromones, and other odors exit the body, they can attract objects and other creatures. And the animistic entities, most of the time, are visible because they are denser than the air. This year, as part of the Hearthstone project, Shumla's staff has conducted a stratigraphic analysis to study the sequence of the painting layers, finding out that the murals contain figures interwoven into a single composition, and radiocarbon dating the whole mural, selecting crucial spots. Stillman's laboratory obtained direct dates confirmed by oxalate dates for some panels utilizing the plasma oxidation method followed by AMS to directly date the organic material in paint. One of the 13 dates obtained from Halo Shelter is a direct date from the feline with sensory signs, dating to 90 BC to 120 AD. The Teotihuacan Animales Mitológicos mural has dates for 350 to 650 AD. That supports the idea that the indigenous of the Lower Pecos used lines and dots as communicative graphic codes to denote vital forces, sensory signs, and substances centuries before that the graphic or earliest graphic representation known in Mesoamerica. In this timeline, we can see the Pecos River-style felines as an early representation of animals with sensory signs. But we have more felines, but we don't have dates yet. However, we also have another date for frost feline, the mural with human felines with sensory signs and black bracelets covering vulnerable body parts. Both have earlier dates than Teotihuacan felines. The Pecos River-style murals, like Teotihuacan murals, hold the codes to understand and distinguish among energies in motion, such as the sacred primordial energy of the cosmos, vital forces such as Tonali, Teyolia, and Ijiyot. They live in different parts of the body and have the power and autonomy to escape using joints and holes. Sensory signs such as breath, wind, roar, smell, taste, sing, speech, or hear, and vital substances like blood, saliva, or semen. Today, I propose that lines and dots communicate sensory experiences. Speech, breath, is not conventional air. Is the breath soul? Is the breath spirit? The breath is the wind spirit. Is the breath of the gods. These attributes are all graphic codes to invoke the senses. They are visual conventions to represent something. For example, in Mesoamerica, speech occurs in myths of creation and human origin. Thank you.
Okay, Diana, thank you very much. We have no questions in the chat. Does anyone have a question for Diana directly?
Hello, I'm curious about the significance of the feline figures in other more recent American mythologies. Felines have sometimes been associated with other trickster figures. Is there any function of the feline with that sort of archetype in mythology?
Yes, actually, for Maya, indigenous Maya, for the post-classic period, the felines are associated with the rulers, with the government, and the hierarchical ancestors of the rulers. But always associated with the power, with the night, the ancestral spirits of the creation of the humans, of the human origin.
I have a question, Diana.
Yes, Tim.
I noticed that the feline that you represented in Rattlesnake Canyon site, the entire body was painted except for the head. The head was left paintless. And of course, the feline that you showed in the Fate Bell Annex ceiling, the upper body, including the head of that feline is paintless as well. Do you see any significance of those two paintless areas?
I've read some interpretations about the substance leaving the body and leaving an empty space. That's the part of the body when the substance were just to live, And when they go out, just leave that space. Because some entities can go and back. So when they are back again, when they return to the body, again, fill the space. But that's what I think the empty spaces are. The empty space conveys a meaning, of course, because the indigenous artists apply for example, in Fate Pale, apply the paint in the half bottom part of the body of the feline, and why they didn't finish. So to me, the empty body or empty spaces, of course, they have a meaning. Actually, in Curly-tailed panther, one of the felines has an empty space in the head, inside the head, and inside the empty space, the artist depict tiny lines. I try to show you here. This feline has an empty space here, and inside the space, we can see tiny little lines, like a piloerection inside the empty space.
I have a question. I'm wondering how interested are the current archaeologists in Teotihuacan? Are they interested in Shumla's work?
I'm not sure. I didn't talk. Well, I was in contact with some researchers who study iconography, but not just in Teotihuacan. So for now, I'm not sure if they are interested to work with Shumla. Would be great.
I have a question. Can you hear me? This is Robin.
Yes, I can hear.
So the felines of Teotihuacan look so obviously jaguar, but the Lower Pecos look different than jaguar. Is it thought that those are a different type of feline, or what's the thinking of what kind of felines they were in Lower Pecos?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the reason I use the word felines, because I don't want to say jaguar if we don't have the spots to be sure they are representing jaguars. So I'm using the word felines for that reason. But what I know is in this region and in the panels, in the Lower Pecos, they depict a mountain lion.
That's what I wondered, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because some of the felines have the tip of the tail with black paint, which means it's a characteristic of the mountain lion, the black tip of the tail.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I've got a question. Una pregunta. ¿Qué representa the piloerection? I'm seeing what I notice is it's represented differently in each one of the mountain lions or in the jaguars. And the impression that I get is if you look at mountain lions or pumas, they don't have the piloerection as a constant state of when they're relaxed. They get that particularly when they're excited or scared or being pursued. Like, for example, if you've ever watched, some kind of a video or whatever of them being chased, for example, by hounds or radio telemetry, when they put collars on them, when they get excited or scared, they kind of hunch up and their hair does in fact stand on end. And that was, like just there in the graphic that you have, if you notice the one on the right and the two on the right, they're represented a little bit different in that the one on the top shows it como que más en la cabeza, and then the other ones show it more in the bodies. But if you look at the way even the legs are placed,
Mhm.
And the way the tails are up, it indicates to me, and I know I'm being long-winded, but my question actually is if we are talking about speech breath and then we are assimilating, at least I am in my head, the piloerection, what, for example, do we have like a theory, or what are we doing? How are we interpreting, rather, that state of excitement of the animal with what they're actually trying to convey through the speech breath? I think that's my question. I wasn't, maybe I conveyed that correctly.
No, that's fine, and it's a good question because I think this combo of sensory signs includes the piloerection, the lines on the armpit, the lines on the nape, the lines on the back, and the speech breath. It's a combo of sensory
Yes.
signs or graphic codes to denote sensory experiences. But it's a good question because the feline never is isolated, is in the middle of a narrative, is part of the composition integrated sometimes per 100 of figures, or sometimes for the other felines or an anthropomorphic humans, but something is happening and the feline is not isolated. So to me, the mural is a composition and is telling us that something is happening, and they are giving us the codes to read. We don't know how to read it, but the codes are there to read what's happening, when, how, who is participating. So I think in the process of transformation, when something is spitting out, the breath of the soul, sometimes the indigenous depict the breath like the last breath when you die, the breath during the transformation. And this process could be a little stressful for the body. And I think the felines are in the position of transformation. During the creation, that process is not an easy process. Something is movement there. Everything is in movement in the mural. Something is happening, and is the action is there, and that's the reason the bodies are not static, are not passive. They are having transformations and moving. For example, the mural, the Halo Shelter mural, I talk about the feline, but this mural has more than 100 of figures interacting, interwoven, and the feline is here with the speech breath, but is interacting with other figures and telling us something is happening and something is coming now during the initiation or creation. And it's a festivity, it's a meat, it's a ritual, but something is happening. And I think the combo of sensory signs includes the piloerection and that reaction of the body.
Yana, we do have some questions in the chat from Phil. Do you think the idea of representing speech breath traveled from Pecos to Southeast Mexico over time, or developed independently in both places?
Well, I'm not sure if traveled from Pecos, but I know it was an early representation here, and some indigenous group with the same Yuto-Aztec language share the same cosmogony and the same language and the same way to name and depict the things. So we know for sure that some elements here in the Lower Pecos are present in Mexico in the Huichol groups, and probably, yeah, it traveled through all the time, but it was first here in the Southwest Texas.
And Carol asks, could you please repeat the components of vital life forces?
Vital life forces. Yeah. I use the examples for Nahua words. Tonali is the vital force who lives in the head. The name is Tonali. Tejolia or Tejolia lives in the heart. And Ihijot lives in the liver. That's the names for the vital forces, but that's Nahua names for vital forces. In different languages, that forces have different names. But the important point here is the different substances live in different parts of the body and have the power and autonomy to leave the body and back.
Donna asks, will Maura Rafael be able to tell us more about the felines? Looking forward to the conclusions of Carolyn's visit to Central Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, we are working. Well, I'm helping Caroline to do some interpretations about the interviews with the indigenous there, with the Huicholes, and I think we can find how the symbol. We can find some symbols like the núcleo duro or hard nucleus of the religion, ancestral symbols again and again and again throughout the time in different geographies, but it's the same symbol with the strong meanings. But it's the same symbol with the strong meanings.
Okay, another question. This is from Sarah. Are there contrasts between the feline speech and other figures' speech?
In felines and humans, almost the same. Well, I didn't see humans in the Lower Pecos with lines coming down, maybe dots or different lines, but strong contrasts, maybe not. I think there is a convention, the use of lines and dots, but the lines could have different shapes or different combinations. But it's a convention more than a contrast. But of course, I found patterns and variety. And in the variation, I found more elements to interpret that they are telling us about a specific thing or a specific entity or force or substance coming out because are different.
Right. From Carolyn, why felines in the first place? What feline characteristics make it so important as a messenger reporter? Why not another animal?
The murals in the Lower Pecos, other animals as a deer are depicted with the speech breath too. Deer and felines, not other animals, just deer and felines. And I think because they are the sacred animals associated with deities and associated with the animals who helped the humans to create in the creation of the world, in the midst all the time. Those are the animals who helped the humans to create the world. I think that's the reason why they are present.
Okay, we have one more from Gwen. Was it significant that animals were involved in the transformative process of creation? Was this creation of the natural world and of human beings?
Yeah, it is significant. For example, the feline is associated with the underworld. The feline can travel to the underworld and appear again, or go like the sun, disappear and travel into the night and appear again. That's an animal with that power. And the deer is an animal with is the animal who sacrificed itself in to burn the sun. This is the animal who sacrificed its body for the first day on the sun. So that is significant to the creation and the process of creation, because the deer is helping the humans in the born of the sun, and the feline is associated with the night and the cycle, the initiation of the cycles.
You, Pansy, one from Pansy. What is on the horizon for your research? Are there many more feline figures in the Alexandria project work that will one day move to Hearthstone?
Oh yeah, there are many. There are other sites with felines. I didn't document in my first year. So I think there are many sites with other figures, with more felines, and I would like to study now the felines as part of the composition, as part of a whole narrative, and start to see the felines with the specific graphic codes associated with sensory signs, but in relation with other figures and talking about a whole narrative. So that's what I want, associate that felines with the bigger concepts inside the mix, and talk about more creation and festivities. Which festivities includes felines with the speech breath, for example. Festivities associated with solstice, for example. Festivities associated with the creation, or in initiate creation. Initiation is part of the solstice. So, that's my idea. That's what I want. Study felines with other figures surrounding them. Many thanks for joining us today, for your questions.
Yeah, we appreciate all of you. As a reminder, watch your email this afternoon. There will be a recording of this, a link to this recording sent out for anyone that couldn't join it, or had to join late. You will get a link to that recording. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate you, and hope to see you on a future Lunch and Learn.